I never thought my life would end in a courtroom at 68 years old, but there I sat, hands shaking against the cold oak table. Judge Merrick looked down through his reading glasses at papers that held 4 generations of my family's sweat. The marble hallway outside still held January's bite. I'd felt it burn my palm on the door handle coming in, forgot my work gloves in the truck. Linda sat across the aisle with her lawyer, Vincent Cross, and that developer Kyle Duchamp. She wore the navy suit I'd bought her last Christmas. Kyle's hand rested on her shoulder like he owned her. Maybe he did. Vincent leaned close to Linda, voice loud enough to carry. This'll be over by lunch. Old fool doesn't stand a chance. My jaw clenched. Korean War taught me when to keep silent. Then I saw Emma in the gallery, 9 years old, clutching that cracked tablet to her chest. The screen suddenly glowed. Her eyes met mine. What did she have on there? 3 months earlier, I'd sat at the same kitchen table where my father taught me to read seed catalogs. Linda slid a manila envelope across the worn wood, didn't even look up from her phone. Outside, January wind rattled the old farmhouse windows. What's this? I asked. Divorce papers. Sign them. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. I could smell it. Burnt, bitter. She'd made it too strong again. Or maybe I just noticed now. Linda, what are you talking about? If something's wrong, we can... I want the farm, Walt. Half of it. My lawyer says I'm entitled. Her phone buzzed. She read the message, smiled at something I couldn't see. The overhead light caught her face wrong. Made her look like a stranger. Half of 280 acres? My voice came out quiet. This land's been Brennan property since 1889. It's been our property for 6 years. Community property state. Walt, I looked it up. She stood, heels clicking on the linoleum, too loud in the morning quiet. Through the window, I could see the barn where my father taught me to hand plane wood, where Tom learned to drive the old tractor before he stopped visiting. Where's Emma? At your truck. Waiting. She grabbed her briefcase, designer leather that cost more than a month's seed budget. My lawyer will contact you. Don't make this difficult. The door shut. Her car engine started, smooth and expensive. I sat there holding papers I didn't understand, legal words that might as well have been Chinese. The envelope was still warm from her hands. I couldn't stay in that house. The walls felt wrong, like they were pressing in. I walked to the barn through frozen mud that crunched under my boots. The big sliding door scraped open, needed oil, had needed it for months. Inside, the temperature dropped 10 degrees, my breath clouded. The old John Deere Model B sat in the corner where it had sat since Dad died, covered in a tarp that had gone stiff with dust and cold. I pulled it back. The green paint had faded to almost gray, but the lines were still good. Clean, honest. I found sandpaper in the toolbox, 220 grit, and started working on a rusted fender. Didn't need to. Just needed my hands to do something they understood. The scraping sound filled the barn, rhythmic, meditative, sand against metal. I'd taught Tom this same motion when he was 12, before Linda. Before I chose a new wife over my grown son and lost 8 years, my eyes burned. I couldn't stop them. 68 years old and crying in my own barn like a fool. Grandpa? I looked up. Emma stood at the top of the hayloft ladder, just her head visible, blonde hair catching the weak light from the high windows. How long had she been there? Hey, sweetheart. Didn't know you were here. Mom dropped me off, said to stay in the truck, but I got cold. She climbed down, careful on the old wooden rungs. At the bottom, she clutched something against her chest. That tablet she carried everywhere. Screen was cracked right across the middle. Looked like it had been dropped a dozen times. That thing still work? Camera does. Sound too, if you know which buttons. She walked over, stood beside me at the tractor. Her small hand touched the cold metal. Are you sad? No point lying to children. Yeah, baby, I'm pretty sad. Oh, because of the divorce? Because of a lot of things. She was quiet for a minute, just standing there. The wind outside made the barn walls creak. I could smell diesel fuel and old hay and the cold itself, if cold has a smell. Grandpa, are you going to let her take the farm? My throat closed up. Couldn't answer. How do you tell a 9-year-old that you might lose everything your family built because you were lonely and stupid? Emma looked down at her tablet, thumb moving across the cracked screen. A small red light blinked on near the camera lens. I'll help you, Grandpa, she whispered. So quiet I almost didn't hear. I promise. She turned and ran back to the ladder, climbed up to the loft. I heard her moving around up there, settling into the old hay pile where Tom used to read comic books in summer. I went back to sanding, but my hands shook now. The metal felt colder than before. Outside, the January sky had gone the color of old iron. 90 days, Linda's paper said. 90 days to respond or lose everything by default. The sandpaper tore. I'd pressed too hard. 2 days later, I needed fence staples. The northeast pasture had 3 posts down from the ice storm. Wire sagging where deer had pushed through. Normal January work. Fix what winter breaks. Earl's Feed and Supply sat on Main Street, same spot since 1947. The bell over the door jangled when I walked in. The potbelly stove crackled in the corner where the old men had gathered there every morning since I was a boy. Coffee percolating on the hot plate, that burnt ground smell mixing with leather and seed dust. The talking stopped when I entered. Earl looked up from behind the counter, reading glasses on a chain around his neck. Walt, morning. Earl, need a box of fence staples, the 3-inch. Got him in back. He disappeared through the stockroom door. The old men in the corner shifted in their metal chairs. Someone cleared his throat. Another man, Ed Paulson, stared into his coffee cup like it held secrets. Finally, Ray Mitchell spoke up, voice gruff. Heard Linda's leaving you, Walt. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I could feel sweat starting under my coat collar despite the January cold still clinging to my jacket. Heard that, did you? Small town. Ray sipped his coffee. Heard she's after the farm, too. That true? Don't know what's true yet, Ray. Just got papers. Ed Paulson finally looked up. Man your age ought to know better than marrying a woman young enough to be his daughter. What did you expect? The words hit like a fist. I'd known Ed 40 years, bought his hay bales every summer. Now he looked at me like I was something pitiful. That's enough, Ed. Earl's voice came from the doorway, sharp. He carried the box of staples, set them on the counter, harder than necessary. Walt's business is his own, when just saying what everybody's thinking. Ed stood, dumped his coffee in the trash. Foolin' his money, that's all. He walked out. The bell jangled behind him. The other men studied their cups, their boots, the ceiling, anywhere but my face. Earl rang up the staples. Don't listen to him, Walt. Ed's been sour since his wife passed. He's not wrong, though, and he's not right either. Earl pushed the box across the counter. That'll be $7.50. I paid cash, picked up the staples. The bell rang again behind me, someone else coming in. I turned. Earl's nephew, young guy, maybe 30, stopped in the doorway. Oh, hey, Mr. Brennan. Heard about you and Linda. Tough break. He grinned. But hey, at least you got 6 good years out of her, right? That's something. He laughed. Actually laughed. I walked past him, out into the cold. Behind me, I heard Earl's voice rise sharp, cursing out his nephew. But it didn't matter. The whole town knew. The whole town was talking. And most of them thought I was a fool. The truck door handle burned cold against my palm. I sat there, box of staples on the passenger seat, watching people walk past the hardware store across the street. Did they know too? Was everyone looking? My phone rang, number I didn't recognize. Mr. Brennan, this is Grace Chen. I'm an attorney here in Hopewell. I heard you might need representation in a divorce matter. How'd you hear that? Small town Mr. Brennan, and I'd like to help if I can. Would you be willing to come by my office this afternoon? I think we should talk about those papers your wife served you. Grace Chen's office sat above the old movie theater, the one that showed second-run films for $4. The stairs creaked. Her door was frosted glass with her name painted in black. Grace Chen, attorney at law. Inside, filing cabinets overflowed with manila folders. Her desk held 3 stacks of papers that looked like they'd fall over if you sneezed. But her eyes were sharp behind modern glasses and her handshake was firm. Thank you for coming, Mr. Brennan. Coffee? No, thank you. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. I sat. The leather was cracked, comfortable, worn smooth by other people's troubles. I reviewed the petition your wife filed. May I be direct? Please. This isn't just a divorce, Mr. Brennan. This is a land acquisition strategy. She spread papers across her desk. I recognized Linda's signature, my own signature on documents I'd never seen before. Your wife took out a second mortgage on the farm 6 months ago, $180,000. Did you know about this? My chest went tight. No, it's legal. You both own the property, so either spouse can mortgage it. But look at this. She pulled out another document. This is a county rezoning permit application, filed in November. It would change your agricultural zoning to residential development, allow subdivision into 40-acre parcels. I know. But that's your signature, isn't it? I looked closer. The handwriting curved like mine, but the B in Brennan was wrong. Too round. I always made it square. Habit from my father's teaching. I didn't sign this. I didn't think so. But proving forgery requires a handwriting expert. That costs about $5,000. Do you have that kind of money, Mr. Brennan? Not right now. Grace leaned back, her chair squeaking. Here's what I think is happening. Your wife has been planning this with someone. Likely that developer Kyle Duchamp, who's been buying up old farms around here. They forged your signature to get the permit. They took out the mortgage to extract immediate cash. And now they're filing for divorce, claiming you're incompetent to manage the property so they can force a sale. The room felt too small, too warm. I could hear the movie theater downstairs, some action film, explosions muffled through the floor. There's more, Grace said quietly. The petition includes a custody request for Emma. Emma's not she's Linda's daughter from before. I'm just her stepfather. Exactly. Linda has full legal custody. But she's requesting court-ordered supervised visitation only between you and Emma. She's arguing that and then I'm quoting here, age-related cognitive decline poses a risk to the child's well-being. The words landed like stones. She's cutting me off from Emma. If she proves you're incompetent, Mr. Brennan, she gets power of attorney. She can sell the farm without your consent, and you'll never see that little girl again. Through the window, I could see Main Street below, the hardware store, Earl's Feed and Supply, the bank where my family had done business since 1923, the whole town that now thought I was a foolish old man who'd been played. Grace's voice softened. I need you to understand something. This isn't just divorce. This is fraud, forgery, possibly elder exploitation. But you're going to need money to fight it, and you're going to need time. They're moving fast? How fast? Your wife is filing a motion for preliminary hearing next week. She's bringing in a psychologist to evaluate you. If that evaluation goes badly. She didn't finish. I stood, my knees ached, 68 years old. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was too old, too slow, too stupid. Thank you for your time, Miss Chen. Mr. Brennan, I want to help you, but I can't do it alone. I walked to the door, hand on the knob. I'll think about it. Outside, the February cold hit me hard. My truck sat alone in the parking lot behind the theater. My phone buzzed. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. This is Tom. Heard about Linda. We need to talk. 8 years. 8 years since my son had spoken to me. Now he wanted to talk. The diesel engine rumble came up the drive 2 days later, just after dawn. I knew that sound. Ford F-350, the kind Tom always drove for his engineering work. I stood at the kitchen window, coffee cup warming my hands, watching the truck pull up beside the barn. He climbed out, 42 years old now, beard I'd never seen before, shoulders still broad like his mother's people. He wore a Carhartt jacket newer than mine, work boots that had seen actual work. Stood there a moment, looking at the house, the barn, the fields rolling away toward the tree line. I walked out onto the porch. The February air cut through my flannel shirt. Ice still crusted the north side of the house, where sun never reached. Tom. Dad. We stood there 20 feet apart, 8 years of silence, sitting between us like a physical thing. Coffee's on, I said finally. All right. I moved inside. He took the same chair he'd always taken as a boy. To the left of the stove, where the heat reached best, I poured him a cup. Black. No sugar. He'd learned to drink it that way, working construction summers in high school. Heard about Linda, he said. Whole town's heard. Yeah, well. He sipped the coffee. I told you 6 years ago she was wrong. You didn't want to listen. I know what you told me. You chose her over me, Dad. Wouldn't hear a word against her. Said I was jealous. Said I couldn't accept that you'd moved on from Mom. The coffee burned going down. You were right. I was wrong. That what you came here to say? Tom set his cup down harder than necessary. I came here because, even though you're a stubborn old fool, you're still my father, and I'm not letting that woman steal what's ours. The words hung in the air. Ours. Not yours. Not mine. Ours. Grace Chin called me, he continued. She's my son's godmother's cousin or something. Small town. She told me about the mortgage, the forged permit, said you can't afford the handwriting expert. I'll figure something out. Dad, stop. Just stop. And he stood, walked to the window, looked out at the barn. I make good money. Engineering consulting. I've got savings. I'll pay for the expert. I'll pay for Grace's retainer. Whatever you need. My throat closed up. Tom, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm telling. He turned back. But we're going to do this right. No pride, no stubbornness. We fight this together, or we don't fight it at all. Through the window, I saw Emma's small figure emerge from Linda's car at the end of the drive. Linda didn't even walk her up, just let her out and drove away. She's been visiting? Tom asked. Couple times a week. Linda doesn't know. Drops her at the end of the drive. Thinks she's at a friend's house down the road. Emma ran up the porch steps, stopped short when she saw Tom through the screen door. It's okay, sweetheart, I called. Come on in. She entered slowly, eyes on Tom. Are you Walt's son? I am, Tom Brennan. I'm Emma. She hugged her tablet to her chest, that cracked screen catching the overhead light. Are you here to help Grandpa? Tom glanced at me, then back to her. Yeah, I am. Good. He needs help. She said it simple, matter of fact, 9 years old and seeing clearer than any adult. Tom knelt down to her level. Emma, That tablet work? Kinda. Screen's broken, but the camera's okay. Sound, too. Mind if I look at it? She handed it over carefully, like it was precious. Tom turned it over in his hands, pressed buttons, watched the screen flicker to life. He navigated to the photo gallery. Empty. You take any pictures with this? Emma looked at me, then back to Tom. Sometimes. Where do you save them? Cloud. Mom doesn't check the cloud. She thinks it's broken. Tom's eyebrows rose. He handed the tablet back. That's smart, Emma. Real smart. After Emma left, Linda picked her up at the road right at noon. Didn't even slow down much. Tom and I walked out to the barn. The temperature had climbed to maybe 35, almost warm for February. Ice melt dripped from the eaves, that steady plink-plink on frozen mud. Inside the barn, Tom stopped in front of the old John Deere. I'd uncovered it fully now, had been working on it in the evenings. Rust scraped away, some of the paint sanded smooth. Dad, you're restoring it? Keeping my hands busy. He ran his hand along the fender, the same motion I'd taught him 30 years ago. Checking for smoothness, for honest work. His fingers stopped on something. He crouched down, looking under the tractor near the brake assembly. Dad, come here. I bent down beside him. He pointed to the brake line, the metal cable that ran from pedal to brake mechanism. The cable was frayed, almost through, but the fraying was wrong, not worn, cut. You could see where something sharp had worked into it, maybe a wire cutter or knife, leaving the outer strands intact, but the inner core severed. This didn't wear through, Tom said quietly. Someone cut this. My blood went cold. When? Judging by the oxidation. Couple months ago. Maybe November, December. He stood, wiped his hands on his jeans. You been driving this thing? No. Haven't run it in years. Been meaning to restore it for, hell, since your mother died. Dad, and Tom's face had gone hard. If you'd started this tractor, gotten it running, taken it out to the fields, these brakes would have failed, at speed. On a machine this old, that's a death sentence. The barn suddenly felt colder. Through the walls, I could hear the wind picking up, that late winter sound like the earth itself was tired. Linda's the only one who's been in this barn besides me and Emma, I said slowly. Or someone Linda let in. Tom pulled out his phone, took pictures of the brake line from 3 angles. Grace needs to see this. That evening, the 3 of us sat in Grace Chin's office above the movie theater. Tom's photos glowed on her computer screen. This changes things, Grace said. This isn't just fraud and forgery. This is this is serious. Can we prove Linda did it? I asked. Not yet, but it establishes a pattern of endangerment, combined with the forged documents, the hidden mortgage. She pulled up a calendar on her computer. I'm filing a counter motion tomorrow morning. We're going to request our own investigation. Financial forensics, handwriting analysis, the works. Tom's funding covers it. Will Judge Merrick allow it? Tom asked. Grace leaned back, that squeaky chair protesting. Harold Merrick grew up on a farm about 20 miles from yours. He knows what land means. He'll allow it, especially once he sees the forgery evidence. She pulled up another document. But I need you to prepare for something, Walt. Linda's filing her competency hearing in 3 days. She's bringing in a psychologist, Dr. Bernard Ross. He's going to evaluate you, ask questions, test your memory, and then he's going to testify about whether you're capable of managing your own affairs. I'm 68, not 90. My mind's fine. I know that. But Linda's lawyer is going to paint a picture. Isolated old man, bad judgment, married a woman he barely knew, can't manage finances, dangerous around machinery. They're building a narrative. Tom spoke up. What do? We build our own narrative. Grace pulled out a legal pad, started writing. Walt, I need you to gather every piece of documentation you have. Farm records, bank statements, tax returns, maintenance logs. Anything that shows competency, organization, sound judgment. We're going to bury them in evidence that you're perfectly capable. She looked at Tom. And you're going to testify, as his son, about his character, his capabilities, his history. It'll matter that you came back after 8 years specifically to defend him. Tom nodded. Whatever you need. Grace's expression softened slightly. There's good news. Judge Merrick agreed to review the permit signature himself before Linda's hearing. If he sees what I see, that forgery, he'll be a lot less sympathetic to her competency claims. Outside, the sun had set. Main Street below glowed with old streetlights, the kind they'd installed in 1963 and never replaced. I could see Earl's Feed and Supply, dark now, the hardware store, the bank, my town, my whole life. Mrs. Chen, I said quietly. If we lose this, what happens? She didn't sugarcoat it. Linda gets power of attorney. She sells the farm, probably to Kyle Duchamp for development. You lose your home, your land, and your access to Emma. The money from the sale goes into a managed account that you can draw from under supervision like you're a child. And you live out the rest of your life watching McMansions go up on your family's ground. Tom's jaw clenched. I could see Martha in him then, that stubborn strength. Then we don't lose, he said. Linda's lawyer moved fast. Vincent Cross had been practicing in Hopewell County for 20 years, knew every clerk, every judge's schedule, every procedural shortcut. By Wednesday morning, we were back in that courthouse, the marble steps slick with late February ice melt. The courtroom felt smaller this time, more people in the gallery. I recognized faces from town, from Earl's feed store, from church, come to watch the old fool get what he deserved. Vincent Cross stood at his table in a suit that cost more than my truck. Beside him, Linda wore black, hair pulled back severe, no makeup, playing the part, and Kyle Duchamp sat in the first row behind them, expensive phone in his hand, legs crossed like he owned the place. Grace sat beside me, Tom behind us in the gallery. Emma wasn't here, school day, and Linda wouldn't let her miss school for this. Judge Merrick entered, and we all stood. He was 71. I knew that much. Grew up on his daddy's cattle farm before going to law school. Wore reading glasses on a chain, same kind my father wore. Be seated. He looked at the papers in front of him. We're here on the petitioner's motion regarding the respondent's competency to manage his own affairs. Mr. Cross, proceed. Vincent stood. Thank you, Your Honor. The petitioner, Mrs. Linda Brennan, has serious concerns about her husband's ability to safely maintain and manage a 280-acre farm operation. We have evidence of concerning behavior, memory lapses, and dangerous judgment calls that put not only Mr. Brennan at risk, but also the minor child who visits the property. He gestured to his table. We've brought in Dr. Bernard Ross, a licensed clinical psychologist with 20 years of experience in geriatric cognitive assessment. Ross evaluated Mr. Brennan 2 days ago and will testify to his findings. My hands gripped the table edge. Grace had warned me about this, the evaluation in a cold office downtown. Dr. Ross asking me questions that seemed simple but were designed to trip up anyone nervous or stressed. What year is it? Who's the president? Count backwards from 100 by sevens. I'd stumbled on the counting, not because I couldn't do math, but because I was thinking about Emma, about the farm, about whether Linda had cut that brake line herself or paid someone. Dr. Ross took the stand, mid-50s, gray beard, expensive watch. He was sworn in, settled into the chair like he'd done this 1,000 times. Vincent approached. Dr. Ross, did you conduct a cognitive evaluation of Walter Brennan on Monday, February 27th? I did. And what were your findings? Dr. Ross opened a folder. His voice was clinical, detached. Mr. Brennan exhibited several markers consistent with age-related cognitive decline. He showed difficulty with serial subtraction tasks, indicating problems with working memory. He displayed emotional lability, crying during portions of the interview, which can indicate poor emotional regulation. He also mentioned a recent incident where he, quote, forgot his work gloves, which speaks to concerning memory lapses in daily functioning. The gallery murmured. I felt Tom's hand on my shoulder from behind. In your professional opinion, Dr. Ross, is Mr. Brennan capable of managing a complex farm operation? In my professional opinion, I have significant concerns. The demands of maintaining 280 acres, financial management, equipment operation, safety protocols, require cognitive sharpness that Mr. Brennan no longer consistently demonstrates. Vincent nodded. Did Mr. Brennan mention any concerning incidents during your evaluation? Yes. He referred to recent issues with farm equipment. Specifically, he mentioned that machinery in his barn was in disrepair, including brake failures. This indicates either neglect of maintenance or, more concerningly, unawareness of dangerous conditions. My chest went tight. They'd twisted it. Twisted the cut brake line into evidence of my incompetence, not Linda's sabotage. Grace stood. Objection, Your Honor. Dr. Ross is characterizing testimony outside his expertise. Equipment maintenance issues don't indicate cognitive decline. Overruled. The witness may testify to what Mr. Brennan reported. Continue, Dr. Ross. The psychologist looked at his notes. Mr. Brennan also showed signs of paranoid thinking. He suggested that his wife may have tampered with farm equipment, which is a classic sign of age-related paranoid delusions. The inability to accept responsibility for one's own declining capabilities often manifests as blame directed toward family members. The words hammered into me. Paranoid, delusional, declining. Vincent smiled. Thank you, doctor. No further questions. Grace stood for cross-examination, but I could see the strain in her shoulders. Dr. Ross, how long was your evaluation of Mr. Brennan? 90 minutes. It was 90 minutes to assess a man's entire cognitive function. And you performed this evaluation where? In my office downtown. Not at his home, where he's comfortable. Not at his farm. where you could observe him in his natural environment performing complex tasks. In a sterile office, after he'd just been served divorce papers and learned his wife was trying to take his family's land. Dr. Ross shifted. The environment doesn't change the test results, Ms. Chen, doesn't it? If I put you in a strange room and asked you to count backwards by sevens while someone threatened to take your life's work, would you perform flawlessly? Objection. Argumentative. Vincent was on his feet. Sustained. Ms. Chen, do you have questions or not? Grace pressed forward. Dr. Ross, did you review any of Mr. Brennan's farm records, tax documents, maintenance logs, anything showing his actual daily functioning? That wasn't part of my evaluation scope. So you have no evidence of actual impairment in his real-world functioning, just 90 minutes of questions in a stressful environment. The tests are scientifically validated. Thank you, doctor. Grace sat down, but the damage was done. I could see it in Judge Merrick's face, the way he wrote notes, the way he looked at me with something like pity. Vincent called his next witness. The petitioner calls Mrs. Linda Brennan. Linda stood, walked to the witness stand. She wore no jewelry except her wedding ring, the cheap one I'd given her when we married, not the expensive upgrade she usually wore. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Vincent's voice went soft, gentle. Mrs. Brennan, this must be difficult for you. It is. Her voice caught, actual tears in her eyes. I love my husband, but I'm terrified for him and for my daughter. Can you describe your concerns? Walt's been forgetting things, important things. He left the stove on twice last month. I came home to smoke in the kitchen. He forgets to take his blood pressure medication. And the farm equipment, she dabbed her eyes with a tissue. He insists on working on that old tractor, but he can't see well anymore. Can't hear the engine problems. I'm afraid he'll hurt himself. Every word was a lie, but she sold it perfectly, the concerned wife. The woman trying to protect a stubborn old man from himself. Has his behavior changed in other ways? He's become paranoid, accusatory. He's accused me of terrible things, things I would never do. It breaks my heart, but I understand it's the illness talking, not him. Vincent nodded sympathetically. Mrs. Brennan, why are you requesting power of attorney? Because someone needs to make sure he's safe. Someone needs to manage the finances before he loses everything. That farm is his legacy, but he can't maintain it anymore. The kindest thing, the loving thing, is to sell it while it still has value, put him in a managed care situation where he's comfortable and safe. Thank you, Mrs. Brennan. No further questions. Grace stood for cross-examination, but Judge Merrick held up his hand. Ms. Chen, it's nearly 5 o'clock. We'll resume tomorrow morning at 9. Court is adjourned. The gavel cracked. People stood, gathering coats and bags. I sat frozen, unable to move. Tom leaned forward. Dad, come on, let's go. Outside, the February sun was setting, sky gone the color of bruises. The courthouse steps were slippery. I nearly fell, caught myself on the iron railing. My hands shook. Across the parking lot, Linda climbed into Kyle's truck. He pulled her close, kissed her like I wasn't even there, like I was already gone. We're losing, I said to Grace. Aren't we? She looked tired, small. I don't know, Walt. Judge Merrick's old school, but he's also cautious. If he thinks there's any validity to Linda's claims, Tom's voice was hard. Tomorrow. We fight harder tomorrow. But I'd seen the judge's face, seen the pity there. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a foolish old man after all. That night, I couldn't sleep. Tom had driven back to his motel in town, said he'd be back at dawn. The farmhouse felt too big, too empty. Every creak of the old boards sounded like judgment. Around 2 in the morning, I gave up, put on my coat and boots, walked out to the barn. The moon was nearly full, bright enough to cast shadows across the frozen mud. My breath clouded in the cold air. Inside, I flipped on the work lights. The John Deere sat there, half restored. I'd been working on it every evening, sanding rust, replacing gaskets, cleaning decades of grime from the engine block. My hands knew this work, even if the courthouse thought my mind was going. I pulled out my toolbox, found the socket wrench, started removing the carburetor. Didn't need to. Just needed to do something I understood. The metal was cold even through my leather work gloves. The ones my father had worn, still good after 40 years. I could smell the old diesel, the grease, the honest dirt of work. The barn door scraped open behind me. Grandpa? I turned. Emma stood there in her winter coat over pajamas, that cracked tablet under her arm. Her mother's car idled at the end of the drive, headlights cutting through the dark. Emma, sweetheart, what are you doing here? It's the middle of the night. Mom went out. Thinks I'm asleep. I snuck out. She walked over, looked up at me with those serious eyes. You were in court today. How'd you know that? Kids at school, their parents talk. She climbed onto an overturned feed bucket, sat watching me work. Did you lose? No point lying. Might have. Because of the divorce? Because the judge thinks I'm too old to take care of myself. Too old to keep the farm. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her tablet, tapped the screen. Grandpa, I've been recording things. What kind of things? Mom and Kyle, when they come to the old house, our house, to talk. They don't know I hide in the closet upstairs. My tablet looks broken, but if you're really quiet and you hold it just right, the camera works perfect. My heart started beating faster. Emma, you've been spying on them? Not spying, protecting. She looked at me with those 9-year-old eyes that had seen too much. I heard them talking about taking the farm, about making you look crazy, about how much money they'd make if you went away. When did you hear this? Lots of times. November, December, last week. She held up the tablet. I saved everything to the cloud, 15 videos. Some are just them kissing and stuff, which is gross, but some are them talking about you, about the plan. I knelt down in front of her, hands on her shoulders. Emma, does your mother know about these videos? No, she thinks this tablet doesn't work. I let her think that. She bit her lip. Grandpa, I wanted to give them to you before, but I was scared. Scared Mom would find out. Scared she'd be mad at me. And now? Now I'm more scared of losing you. Her voice cracked. You're the only one who reads to me. Who makes me pancakes with faces? Who doesn't look at their phone when I'm talking? If they take you away, if they sell the farm, I won't have anybody. I pulled her into a hug. This little girl who wasn't my blood, but was more mine than anything else in this world. She cried into my shoulder, small body shaking. It's okay, sweetheart. You did the right thing. You're so brave. But what if showing the videos makes it worse? What if the judge gets mad at me for recording Mom? I just held her at arm's length, looked her in the eyes. Emma, I need you to listen. Tomorrow, I want you to stay home from school. I'm going to call Grace, my lawyer, and she's going to come here. You're going to show her those videos. And then we're going to decide together what to do, okay? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Outside, a car horn honked twice, Linda getting impatient. I have to go, Emma whispered. Keep that tablet safe. Hide it somewhere your mother won't look. I always do. She hugged me one more time, then ran for the door. At the threshold, she turned back. Grandpa, I love you more than her. Is that bad? No, baby, that's not bad at all. And she disappeared into the night. The car door slammed. Headlights swung away, taillights fading down the road. I stood alone in the barn, work lights humming overhead, old tractor waiting patient as stone. 15 videos, 15 pieces of evidence that might save everything. Or might get a 9-year-old girl caught in the crossfire of her mother's greed. Grace Chin arrived at the farm by 7 in the morning, Tom right behind her. I'd called them both before dawn, voice shaking on the phone. Emma had texted me an address, her friend Kayla's house, 2 roads over. Linda thought she was there for a school project. We sat at the kitchen table, the 3 of us. Emma placed her cracked tablet in the center, like evidence at a crime scene. How many videos? Grace asked. 15, some are short, some are like 10 minutes. Emma's voice was small but steady. I numbered them by date. Grace opened the tablet, navigated to the cloud storage. Tom and I leaned in. She clicked on the first file, dated November 18th. The video was shaky, filmed from inside what looked like a closet, door cracked open. The angle showed our old living room, the house Linda and I had shared before she moved out. Linda and Kyle sat on the couch, close, his arm around her shoulders. Kyle's voice came through clear. So the permit's filed? Signed and filed. Rezoning hearing is in January. Linda's voice. Walt doesn't even know. He just signs whatever I put in front of him. What if he figures it out? He won't. And even if he does, who's going to believe him? He's 68. I'm his younger wife. He married me 6 months after his first wife died. I'll cry in court about how worried I am, how forgetful he's getting. They'll eat it up. Kyle laughed. God, you're ruthless. I love it. Once we get the competency ruling, we file for power of attorney. I sell the farm to your development company at market rate. What's the split again? 60-40. You get 60% after closing costs. Should clear you about $800K. Linda kissed him. Long, deep. Emma had kept recording. Grace stopped the video. Her face had gone hard. Jesus Christ. There's more, Emma whispered. Grace clicked through the files. Video after video of Linda and Kyle discussing the plan, the forged permit, the hidden mortgage. Kyle had helped her set it up, knew a banker who'd process it quickly, the psych evaluation they'd arranged with Dr. Ross, who'd been paid extra to interpret results conservatively. In one video from December, Kyle asked about the tractor. Did you do it? His voice. Cut the brake line? Yeah, took me 10 minutes. Linda sounded proud. It's an old machine. If he'd actually gotten it running, tried to use it, she shrugged. Farm accidents happen all the time at his age. Tom's fist hit the table. She tried to kill him. Grace held up a hand. Keep watching. The final video was from last week. Linda and Kyle in the same living room, celebrating. Ross did the evaluation yesterday. Said Walt bombed the serial subtraction test, cried during the interview. Perfect. Linda poured champagne into 2 glasses. Vincent says the judge is sympathetic. 1 more day of testimony and we're done. Walt gets supervised visitation with Emma until she turns 18. I get power of attorney, and you get your development land. What about the kid? Kyle gestured with his glass. She's going to figure out eventually that you screwed over her grandfather. Emma adores me. She's 9. By the time she's old enough to understand, it won't matter. The farm will be subdivided, the money will be spent, and Walt will be in some assisted living facility playing checkers. Linda took a long drink. Besides, kids are resilient. She'll get over it. The video ended. The kitchen was silent except for the old refrigerator humming. Emma looked at Grace with those serious eyes. Is that enough? Grace's voice was shaky. Emma, this is a prosecuting attorney's dream. This is fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, perjury. Your mother and Kyle Duchamp are going to prison. But will it save Grandpa? Yes, sweetheart. This will save him. Tom spoke up. How do we use this? Can we submit it as evidence? Grace was already pulling out her phone. I'm calling Judge Merrick's clerk right now. Emergency motion. We need to get this in front of him before court starts at 9. By 8:30, we were back in that courthouse. Judge Merrick had agreed to an emergency chambers meeting. Just him, Grace, Vincent Cross, and the court reporter. Tom and I waited outside in the marble hallway. Emma sat between us, tablet clutched to her chest. Through the frosted glass door, I could see shadows moving. Voices rose and fell, Vincent's getting louder. The door opened. Vincent Cross walked out, face red, jaw clenched. He didn't even look at us. Just stormed down the hallway, footsteps echoing off marble. Grace emerged, slight smile on her face. Judge wants to see you, Walt, and Emma, both of you. Judge Merrick's chambers were lined with law books and framed photos of his grandchildren. He sat behind a massive oak desk, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked at Emma, and his expression softened. Young lady, come here, please. Emma walked forward. I started to follow, but the judge held up a hand. Just Emma for now, Mr. Brennan. She approached the desk. The judge leaned forward, elbows on the wood. Emma, I've watched some of your videos. I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to tell me the truth. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Did anyone tell you to make these recordings? No, sir. Did anyone help you? No, sir. I did it myself. Why did you record them? Emma's voice was steady. Because I heard them talking about taking Grandpa's farm, about making him look crazy so they could sell his land. And I love my grandpa. He's good to me. Better than... She stopped. Better than who, Emma? Better than my mom. Mom's always on her phone, always working, always with Kyle. Grandpa reads to me, makes me pancakes, helps me with homework. When I'm with him, I matter. Judge Merrick took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes. When he looked at Emma again, his expression was gentle. Emma, what you did was very brave and very smart. Do you understand that these videos are going to make your mother very angry? Yes, sir. And you still wanted me to see them? Yes, sir, because they're the truth. And Grandpa says the truth matters more than keeping people happy. The judge smiled slightly. Your grandfather's a wise man. He looked at me. Mr. Brennan, approach, please. I walked forward, stood beside Emma. Judge Merrick's voice changed, became formal. Mr. Brennan, I've reviewed the video evidence provided by your stepdaughter. I've also had my clerk pull the rezoning permit that was filed in November. I grew up on a farm, Mr. Brennan, drove a tractor before I could legally drive a car, and I know what a forged signature looks like when the person signing doesn't know how a farmer writes his own name. He stood, walked to the window overlooking the courthouse lawn. Your wife forged legal documents. She conspired to commit fraud. She tampered with farm equipment in what appears to be an attempt to cause you serious harm or death. And she perjured herself yesterday when she testified to this court about her loving concern for your welfare. He turned back to us. Court resumes in 20 minutes. I'm going to allow Miss Chen to present this video evidence, and then I'm going to do something I've rarely done in 30 years on the bench. I'm going to recommend criminal prosecution for every person involved in this conspiracy. Relief flooded through me so hard my knees went weak. Emma grabbed my hand, squeezed tight. Your Honor, I managed. Thank you. Don't thank me, Mr. Brennan. Thank this young lady. She just saved your life. He looked at Emma with something like awe. When I was 9 years old, I was still playing with toy soldiers. You just conducted a counterintelligence operation that would make the FBI proud. Emma's cheeks flushed. I couldn't let them take him. No, Judge Merrick said softly. You couldn't, and you didn't. 20 minutes later, the courtroom was packed. Word had spread somehow, small town always does. Every seat filled, people standing in the back. Earl was there, and half the men from the feed store. The bank manager. My old neighbors, they'd come to watch the finale. Linda sat at her table with Vincent Cross, who looked like a man facing a firing squad. Kyle Duchamp was noticeably absent. Grace had mentioned the DA had already issued a warrant. Judge Merrick took the bench. This court is now in session. Miss Chen, I understand you have additional evidence to present. Yes, Your Honor. With the court's permission, I'd like to enter into evidence a series of video recordings made by the minor child, Emma Brennan, which directly contradict testimony given yesterday. Vincent stood. Your Honor, I object. These videos were made without consent, possibly illegally. Overruled. In Missouri, one-party consent is sufficient for recording. Emma was present during these conversations, making her a party. The videos are admissible. Continue. Miss Chen. Grace set up the courtroom display screen. I'm going to play 3 excerpts. They speak for themselves. The first video played. Linda's voice filled the courtroom. Walt doesn't even know. He just signs whatever I put in front of him. Gasps from the gallery. Linda's face went white. The second video, Kyle asking about the permit split, Linda confirming the fraud. The third video, Linda discussing cutting the brake line. Farm accidents happen all the time at his age. The courtroom erupted. Judge Merrick's gavel cracked 3 times. Linda stood, started toward the exit. Bailiff, detain Mrs. Brennan. She's not leaving this courtroom. The bailiff moved quickly, blocked the door. Linda turned, wild-eyed, looking for another way out. Sit down, Mrs. Brennan, Judge Merrick said. His voice was ice. She sat, tears running down her face now, but nobody believed them anymore. Judge Merrick looked at the gallery, then at Linda. In 30 years on this bench, I have never seen such calculated cruelty. That evening, after the court session had adjourned and Linda had been taken into custody, Tom drove Emma back to Kayla's house. Grace had arranged it with Kayla's parents. Emma couldn't go home, not with Linda arrested and Kyle still on the loose somewhere. Child Services would sort out temporary custody tomorrow. I sat in my truck in the courthouse parking lot, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. The sun was setting, sky going purple and gold. People walked past, some nodding at me, some looking away. The whole town knew now, every detail. My phone rang. Tom. Dad, I'm heading back to the farm. You coming? In a bit. You okay? I don't know. Silence on the line. Then, I'll put coffee on. As he hung up, I sat there another 10 minutes, watching the light fade. Then I drove home. Tom had the kitchen warm, coffee brewing, that smell filling the old house. He'd also started a fire in the wood stove, something I hadn't done in weeks. The crackling sound was like childhood, like my father's voice reading the almanac on winter nights. I poured coffee, sat at the table. Tom sat across from me, same way we'd sat 1,000 times when he was growing up. When his mother was alive and the world made sense. We won, he said finally. Yeah. Judges referring Linda and Kyle for criminal prosecution. Forgery, fraud, attempted murder. Grace says they're looking at 10 years minimum. I know. Tom leaned back, studying me. Then why do you look like you just lost? I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, felt the heat through ceramic. Outside, the last light was dying. Through the window, I could see the barn, dark shape against darker sky. Because a 9-year-old girl just testified against her own mother, I said quietly. Because Emma's going to grow up knowing she put Linda in prison because I let it get to that point. Dad, you didn't let anything happen. Linda made her choices. I chose her. 6 months after your mother died, I married a woman I barely knew because I was lonely and stupid. And that choice put Emma in an impossible position. Tom was quiet for a long moment. You want to know why I didn't visit for 8 years? I know why. Because I picked Linda over you. No, because I couldn't watch you make yourself small for her. He leaned forward. Mom made you better, bigger, stronger. Linda made you less. And I couldn't stand seeing what you were becoming. This grateful old man, tiptoeing around his own house, afraid to speak up because she might get upset. The words hit hard because they were true. But Emma, I said, that little girl shouldn't have had to. Emma made her own choice, Dad. You taught her that the truth matters more than keeping people happy. She listened. And yeah, it's going to hurt her. Yeah. She's going to need therapy and support and probably a lot of years to process what her mother did. But you know what the alternative was? What? Watching you lose everything. Watching her stepfather, the only man who ever really loved her, get put in a home because her mother lied. That would have hurt worse, trust me. And I thought about Emma in Judge Merrick's chambers, voice steady, telling the truth even though it meant destroying her relationship with Linda. 9 years old and braver than most adults would ever be. Grace called while you were sitting in the parking lot, Tom said. Judge Merrick is granting you temporary custody of Emma. Full hearing next week, but he said there's no question. She's staying with you. My chest tightened. I'm 68 years old. What do I know about raising a little girl? More than Linda ever did. And Tom stood, poured himself more coffee. Dad, Emma doesn't need perfect. She needs real. She needs someone who shows up, who reads to her, who makes pancakes with faces. You've been doing that all along. He was right, but it didn't make the weight any lighter. What if I mess up? What if my mind really does start going in a few years? What if... Then I'll be here. Tom's voice was firm. I'm moving back. Found a job in Springfield I can do remote most days. I'll get a place in town, but I'll be here every morning checking on things. You won't be alone in this. I looked at my son, 42 years old, beard going gray, his mother's eyes looking back at me. 8 years lost, but he'd come back when it mattered most. I'm sorry, I said, for choosing her. For all of it. I know, and I'm sorry I stayed away so long. He sat back down. But we're here now, both of us, and we've got a little girl to take care of, and a farm to run, and about 100 things to fix before spring planting. Through the window, I saw headlights coming up the drive. Tom looked out, tensed. It's okay, I said. That's Grace's car. Grace knocked, came in without waiting for an answer. She carried a briefcase and looked exhausted. Coffee? Tom offered. God, yes. She sat at the table, accepted the cup Tom handed her. Long day. Any news on Kyle? I asked. State police picked him up trying to cross into Arkansas. He'll be arraigned tomorrow. She pulled papers from her briefcase. But that's not why I'm here. Walt, we need to talk about Emma. My stomach dropped. What about her? Judge Merrick wants to make sure you understand what you're taking on. Emma's going to need counseling, probably for years. She's going to have anger, confusion, probably some guilt, even though none of this is her fault. And Linda's going to have parental rights hearings from prison. She can fight for visitation, maybe even partial custody down the line. I don't care. Emma stays with me. Grace smiled slightly. I told the judge you'd say that. He wants to do a home study, just a formality, make sure the farm is safe for a child. Social worker will visit next week. The farm's fine. I know, but there's something else. Grace's expression shifted, became more serious. Emma asked me a question today, after everything was over. She asked if loving you more than her mother made her a bad person. The words cut deep. I remembered her asking me the same thing in the barn, face streaked with tears. What did you tell her? I told her that love isn't about biology. It's about who shows up, who sees you, who makes you feel like you matter. Grace looked at me steadily, and I told her that choosing truth over loyalty to someone who's hurting you doesn't make you bad, it makes you brave. Tom spoke up. What did she say? She said, Grandpa taught me that. Grace's eyes were wet. Walt, you saved that little girl long before she saved you. You know that, right? I didn't trust myself to speak, just nodded. Grace gathered her papers. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start the paperwork for permanent custody. And for what it's worth, you're going to be a good father to her. Better than good. After she left, Tom and I sat in the quiet kitchen. The fire crackled. Outside, the March wind was picking up, that sound of winter finally breaking. Dad, Tom said, we should finish the tractor. What? The John Deere. We should restore it together. Get it running for spring. He looked at me. Mom would have wanted that. And Emma should learn to drive it someday, when she's old enough. I thought about that old machine sitting in the barn, half restored, waiting. Thought about my father teaching me teaching Tom teaching Emma someday. 4 generations, all connected by green paint and engine oil and the smell of diesel on cold mornings. Yeah, I said. Let's finish it. The tractor restoration took 2 weeks. Every evening after Emma got home from school, the 3 of us worked in the barn. Me, Tom, and a 9-year-old girl who turned out to have a natural talent for mechanics. She could hear when the timing was off, same way I could, same way my father could. By mid-March, the John Deere Model B ran like it was 1952 again. Engine smooth, brakes rebuilt, every bolt tightened. Tom had even found original paint, that specific shade of green they don't make anymore. But the final hearing was coming, April 3rd. Judge Merrick wanted to resolve everything. The divorce, the custody, the property settlement, all of it. Grace warned me that Linda's public defender would fight. Linda had written letters from jail, claiming she'd been manipulated by Kyle, claiming she loved me, claiming she wanted another chance. The prosecutor had a different story. They'd found the bank records, the payments to Dr. Ross, the paper trail showing premeditation going back 8 months. This wasn't impulse, this was a plan. April 3rd came cold and clear, last gasp of winter. Ice still crusted the north-facing ditches, but the fields were greening up, spring pushing through frozen ground. Tom drove the tractor to the courthouse on a flatbed trailer. I rode in the passenger seat of his truck, Emma between us. She wore her good dress, the one we'd bought special for this. Hairbrushed, tablet left at home this time. She didn't need it anymore. The courthouse lawn was already crowded when we arrived. Half the town, seemed like. Earl stood near the steps with the feed store regulars. Grace Chen waited by the entrance, briefcase in hand. "You ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." Us inside, the courtroom was packed. Every seat filled, standing room only in the back. Linda sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. Her eyes found Emma, pleading, desperate. Emma looked away. Judge Merrick took the bench. "This court is in session. We're here to finalize several matters in the case of Brennan versus Brennan. But first, Mr. Brennan, I understand you have a demonstration prepared." Grace stood. "Yes, Your Honor. As part of our response to the competency allegations, Mr. Brennan would like to demonstrate his capability with farm equipment." Linda's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, this is unnecessary. The criminal charges against Mrs. Brennan don't change the fact that Mr. Brennan is 68 years old and managing a large farm operation alone could be counsel. I'll decide what's necessary. Mr. Brennan, you may proceed." We walked outside, the whole courtroom following. The sun was bright, almost warm. Tom unloaded the tractor from the trailer, that beautiful green paint shining. Judge Merrick walked around it, ran his hand along the fender. "Model B, what year?" 1952, Your Honor. My father's tractor. I learned to drive on this machine when I was 10 years old. "And you restored it yourself?" "My son and I, together." The judge smiled slightly. "Start it up, Mr. Brennan." I climbed onto the seat, metal still cold through my jeans. The steering wheel was smooth under my hands, worn by 3 generations. I checked the fuel, the choke, turned the key. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. That sound like thunder and history and everything my family had ever been. The crowd applauded. I let it run, listening. Something was off, just slightly. A tick in the timing that most people wouldn't even hear. I killed the engine, climbed down, opened the hood. Judge Merrick came closer. "Problem, Mr. Brennan. Timing's off, about 2 degrees. You can hear it in the idle. That slight hesitation every 3rd rotation." I reached in, adjusted the distributor by feel, closed the hood, started it again. Perfect. Smooth as silk. Judge Merrick looked at Linda's lawyer. "Does your client still contend Mr. Brennan is incompetent to manage farm equipment?" The lawyer said nothing. "Let's go back inside," the judge said. The courtroom felt different now, smaller, less threatening. We took our seats. Judge Merrick reviewed his papers, then looked at Linda. "Mrs. Brennan, do you have anything to say before I render my decision?" Linda stood, shaking. "Your Honor, I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I love my husband, I love my daughter. I was scared, and Kyle manipulated me, and Mrs. Brennan, you cut the brake line on a tractor, hoping your husband would die in a farm accident. You forged legal documents. You committed perjury in my courtroom. You paid a psychologist to lie under oath." Judge Merrick's voice was hard. "You weren't scared. You were greedy. Sit down." She collapsed into her chair, sobbing. The judge turned to me. "Brennan, I've reviewed all the evidence. I've watched you demonstrate competency that would shame men half your age. I've read the character statements from your community, your son, and most importantly, from Emma herself." He pulled out a handwritten letter. "Emma wrote to me last week. Would you like to know what she said?" My throat was too tight to answer. I nodded. She said, "Grandpa reads to me every night. He helps me with math, even though new math is different from old math, and it confuses him. He makes me feel safe. Please don't take me away from him. He's the only parent who ever really saw me." Judge Merrick set the letter down. "She's 9 years old, and she understands something your wife never did. Family isn't about blood. It's about showing up." He looked at Linda. "The petition for divorce is granted. You receive 0 property, 0 assets. The prenuptial agreement is enforced in full. Everything remains with Mr. Brennan. Additionally, I'm terminating your parental rights pending the criminal trial. If you're convicted, those rights will be permanently revoked." Linda wailed, but the bailiff held her in her seat. "As for custody of Emma Brennan, I'm granting full legal guardianship to Walter Brennan with the intent to proceed with formal adoption proceedings once the criminal case concludes." Emma grabbed my hand, squeezed so hard it hurt. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I'm ordering restitution. Mrs. Brennan and Mr. Duchamp will repay the $180,000 taken via fraudulent mortgage, plus damages. Mr. Brennan, your farm stays in your family where it belongs." Grace was smiling. Tom had his hand on my shoulder. The gallery erupted in applause. Judge Merrick banged his gavel. Order. We're not done. He looked at Linda one last time. You tried to destroy a good man because you wanted money. You used the legal system as a weapon. You endangered a child's relationship with the only stable parent she'd ever known. In my 30 years on this bench, you represent everything wrong with human nature. He turned to me, and his expression softened. Mr. Brennan, you represent everything right. This court stands adjourned. The gavel fell. Linda was led out in cuffs, still crying. I didn't watch her go. I was looking at Emma, at Tom, at Grace, who'd fought so hard. We won, Emma whispered. Yeah, sweetheart, we did. Outside, Earl and the feed store men waited. Earl shook my hand. Hard. Knew you weren't senile, Walt. Knew it all along. Even when you didn't speak up in the feed store? He had the grace to look ashamed. Even then, I'm sorry about that. It's forgotten. The crowd dispersed slowly. Tom loaded the tractor back onto the trailer. Emma sat in the truck cab, watching through the window. Grace approached, briefcase in hand. Adoption papers will be ready in about 3 months, assuming Linda's convicted. Which she will be. Thank you, Grace, for everything. Thank you for reminding me why I became a lawyer. She smiled. Not for the money, for days like this. Linda's trial lasted 3 days in late April. I didn't attend, but Tom went, said he wanted to see it through. The jury deliberated for 40 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Fraud, forgery, attempted murder, conspiracy. The judge gave her 12 years. Kyle Duchamp got 15. Emma asked if she could visit her mother in prison. I said yes, if that's what she wanted. She thought about it for a week, then said no. Maybe when I'm older, when I understand more, but not now. Child Services came for the home study. The social worker walked through every room, checked the smoke detectors, looked at Emma's bedroom. We'd repainted it yellow, her choice, with white curtains Martha had made years ago. She interviewed Emma alone, then me, then together. 2 weeks later, the approval came through. Permanent custody granted, adoption proceedings to begin in June. By early May, the farm had come back to life. Tom helped me plant the Northeast 40, soybeans this year, rotation from last year's corn. Emma rode on the tractor with me some evenings, sitting on my lap, small hands on the big steering wheel while I worked the pedals. Grandpa, when can I drive it alone? When your legs are long enough to reach the clutch. Another 4, 5 years maybe. That's forever. It'll come faster than you think, sweetheart. The fields stretched green toward the horizon. The same fields my great-grandfather had broken with a mule. My grandfather had worked with horses. My father had farmed with this very tractor. Now me and Tom and someday Emma, 4 generations becoming 5. One evening in mid-May, we sat on the porch, me, Tom, and Emma. The sun was setting, fireflies just starting to blink in the growing dark. The air smelled like cut grass and warm earth and possibility. Emma leaned against my shoulder, tired from a day helping Tom repair fence posts. She'd insisted on learning, wanted to know everything about running a farm, said someday it would be hers, and she needed to be ready. Grandpa? Yeah, sweetheart? Do you think Mom hates me for the videos? I chose my words carefully. I think your mom is angry. At herself, mostly. At the choices she made. But hate? No. I don't think she's capable of understanding what she lost. Do you hate her? No. I feel sorry for her. She had a chance at a real family, and she traded it for money she'll never see. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm glad I recorded them, even if it made her go to prison. Is that bad? No, baby, that's not bad. You told the truth. Truth isn't always easy, but it's always right. Tom spoke from his chair, feet propped on the porch rail. Emma, you saved your grandpa's life. You saved this farm. You saved our family. Don't ever feel guilty about that. She nodded against my shoulder. Through the open window behind us, I could hear the radio playing. Old country station, Hank Williams, singing about lost love and found redemption. The pocket watch in my shirt pocket pressed against my chest. I pulled it out, wound it slowly. The mechanism clicked, smooth and precise. My father's watch kept time for 50 years before he died. I'd let it stop after Martha passed. Couldn't bear the sound of it ticking, marking time I didn't want to pass. But Emma had asked about it last week. Asked why I didn't wear it. Asked if she could hear it tick. So, I'd wound it, set it to the right time, started it again. Emma, I said, hold out your hand. She sat up, curious. I placed the watch in her palm, closed her fingers around it. This was my father's, and his father's before that. It's yours now. When you're older, when you really understand what it means. But Grandpa, you should keep it. I've kept it long enough. Now it's your turn. To keep time, to remember, to pass it on someday to your own kids. She opened her hand, looked at the watch face. The second hand swept smooth around the dial. Tick, 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 tick. Time moving forward. Thank you, she whispered. Tom stood, stretched. I'm heading into town. Need anything? We're good, I said. See you tomorrow morning, early. We've got that irrigation line to fix in the south field. I'll be ready. He climbed into his truck, headlights cutting through the growing dark. The engine started, that diesel rumble fading as he drove away down the long gravel drive. Emma and I sat in the quiet. Fireflies danced across the lawn. Somewhere in the distance, a whippoorwill called. The first stars were appearing, same stars my ancestors had watched from the same porch. Grandpa? Yeah. Will you teach me to plant next year? Like really plant, not just ride along? Count on it. And can we keep bees? I read that bees are good for farms. We'll look into it. And can I learn to weld? Tom says welding is important. As I laughed, the sound surprising me. When was the last time I'd laughed like that? Really laughed? Sweetheart, we'll teach you everything. You've got time. She settled back against my shoulder. The watch ticked in her hand. Time moving forward. But for once, I wasn't afraid of where it was going. The land stretched dark around us, 400 acres of memory and work and hope. The barn stood solid against the stars. The old John Deere waited inside, ready for another season. Some roots run too deep to pull up even when folks try. 3 weeks later, I sat on the porch at dawn with my coffee. The rain gauge showed 2 inches from last night's storm. Good for the seedlings. I opened Martha's old field notebook, wrote the date, the weather, the first report of growth in the Northeast 40. Continuing her work, keeping the record. Emma's adoption papers had come through yesterday. Official now. My daughter, not just my stepdaughter. She'd cried when the social worker told her. Happy tears, she said. The kind that means something's finally right. Tom had moved into the old foreman's cottage at the edge of the property, said he'd fix it up slow, make it his, said maybe he'd look for someone to share it with eventually, but for now, he was good. Said family was enough. The daffodils I'd planted on Martha's grave were blooming now, yellow and bright against the gray stone. I'd taken Emma there last week, told her about the woman she never met. Emma said, I wish I could have known her. I said, you're a lot like her. She would have loved you fierce. Linda's appeal had been denied. 12 years stood. Kyle's too. The farm sale money had been recovered, restitution paid in full, the mortgage cleared, the land free and clear for the first time since 1985. Some battles you win with noise. This one I won with receipts, a camera, and a 9-year-old girl's courage. But the real victory wasn't in the winning, it was in the staying. In the morning coffee, in the rain gauge, in the field notebook that would outlast us all. From the barn I heard Emma's voice, talking to the barn cats she'd named and claimed. Tom's truck rumbled up the drive, early, like always, coming to work the land with his old man and his new sister. The sun cleared the tree line, warming the porch boards. The fields stretched green toward the horizon. The land remembers who loved it and who tried to sell it. And now, so would we.